Welcome back to another episode of Field Guide. This episode is going to be a little different than ones we've done in the past. We're not going to be focusing on a garment per se today, but kind of what went into garments. This kind of was inspired by a conversation that I was having with someone else here at Sand & Strange. All of these military uniforms, and such a big part of them is kind of their pocket space. From a vintage clothing standpoint, or just from a style standpoint, like pockets are cool. In the context of history, like what were these pockets designed to do? What were these pockets designed to hold? So today we're going to kind of run down kind of what you could expect to find in a World War II GI's pockets. Now, before we kind of get started, I know this is kind of a lot of preamble here, but I think it's important to kind of talk about what exactly World War II infantry combat looked like and why this necessitated guys carrying a lot of stuff in their pockets. Because it doesn't look like, you know, maybe images of war that, you know, you're seeing today flashed across, you know, your TV screens. World War II infantry combat, especially in the European theater, was a kind of constant experience of being both on the offensive and also outside, right? Infantry, almost by definition, means kind of being at the very, you know, essentially the tip of any offensive or the front of any kind of, you know, defensive action. What that meant in World War II was basically spending a lot of time outside. You know, moving through Northwest Europe, moving up the boot of Italy, whatever it may be. For example, like the average GI in Europe, you know, was probably getting a fresh set of clothes and a shower every 3 to 6 weeks. You're not moving via vehicle mostly. You are, you know, you're walking and marching and fighting all kind of on your feet. And what that means is you have to carry everything that you could possibly need for both survival and, you know, kind of well-being, whatever that looks like, right? With that setup, I think you can kind of now start to understand why some of this stuff was necessary to be carried in your pockets. So this is, you know, your kind of classic M43 field jacket. I've set this up roughly with things kind of in each pocket space that are reflective of a letter that was written by Private First Class Thomas Harper back to his family in Pennsylvania, kind of running through the things he carried in his pockets. What's not included are, you know, things basically tools of the trade, if you will. So, you know, be it extra ammunition, hand grenades, and also, you know, sustainment, right? So food, right? So rations. As we went through in the M43 video, the top pockets of the M43 jacket were designed to hold a K ration comfortably. We're not going to be looking at that here. So again, kind of imagine this, but like more. I mean, when you look at photos, and we'll like insert some photos here of, you know, GIs during the war, you can just see how insanely packed their pockets are. So let's walk through some of this stuff. He said he was carrying mostly letters and stationery in a time before, you know, digital communication, right? You know, like the only way that these soldiers had to communicate home was via letter. Writing and receiving letters was a, you know, basically a very critical component of, you know, a GI's morale. This is kind of your standard kind of stationery paper. It's essentially, it's not quite printer paper, right? As you can see, it's kind of on the smaller side, and it's super, super thin. You know, one of the most popular ways of writing letters would be airmail, mostly because it was a faster process than, you know, kind of sending via, you know, regular mail. He mentions carrying his pipe. So, you know, again, you know, tobacco use, which is still obviously incredibly prevalent in the military, you know, was kind of even more so during World War II. Basically, 4 cigarettes came in every single K ration. So that's, you know, 4 cigarettes with breakfast, 4 cigarettes with lunch, 4 cigarettes with dinner, right? But besides that, you know, kind of soldiers were also getting, you know, full packs of cigarettes. So you can see here, kind of Old Gold, a brand that, you know, kind of, I would say is probably famous in my generation more for Mad Men than for anything else, episode 1.
But what is it? I mean, low tar, those new filters, why Old Gold?
They gave them to us in the service, a carton a week for free.
He also mentions having a box of matches. So these are, you know, Independence safety matches. These are in a balsa wood container, kind of have like the toiletry section, toothbrush, tooth powder, which was kind of extinct today. But, you know, really before the 1950s and 60s was probably the most common way of brushing your teeth. So it's essentially, think about like, you know, if you ever brush your teeth with baking powder, it's kind of like baking powder with like a mint, you know, in it. A safety razor in a Bakelite case, and shaving cream as well. 2 pocket knives, kind of, you know, scout style, would have been very common. You know, these were not issued knives, but knives that, you know, nearly any memoir or accounting of what a GI carried in his pockets almost always has a pocket knife. And then a pencil. This is a time before ballpoint pens, right? You know, so basically your 2 ways of writing would have been a standard lead pencil or mechanical pencil or a fountain pen. Fountain pens were not ideal, especially in the field, mostly because this is, again, a time before cartridges. So you were filling up, you know, basically the reservoir of a fountain pen straight into the pen, and which can, you know, basically spill and leak, you know, pretty easily. This is like, you know, kind of a very typical accounting of what, you know, a GI might be carrying in his pockets. Huge thank you to Tom Kelly for sharing that letter and kind of, you know, allowing me to walk through some of these things.
So while Charles is going over what historically has gone into the pockets of a military jacket, Jen and I thought it could be fun to talk a little bit about what we carry every day in our reproduced military jackets as normal civilians who work in a clothing store. I am wearing a P-44 from the Real McCoys. This is one of my favorite, slightly more obscure military style jackets with the side entry pockets and the front. What have you got on?
I have a Real McCoy's tanker jacket, and then have a C1 vest for sustenance that we'll be stocking in the future by a mystery brand.
Keep your eyes peeled. I think let's just get right into it. Let's start with this pocket for me. I'm gonna pull out the first thing. So in this outer pocket, I keep things that I'm using a little bit more day to day. First of which is my sunglasses.
In my left pocket, because I'm a left-handed smoker, I have a cigarette case.
Next up, I've got my wallet.
Lighter, shout out to Tomo for this.
Whoa.
Oh, shout out Mari Jacobson. Portable ashtray.
Important, a little Cupid doll that I keep in my pocket for good luck. It brings me joy and blessings. This is also from one of our other coworkers, Aaron, who handles all the shipments. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Cupid doll.
What else do I got? Oh, daily camera.
Okay, what's in my first side entry pocket? Probably my cell phone for how I make calls and things. Soldiers would have letters and stationery. I can't read or write, so this is way more helpful because Siri, call mom.
Playing cards.
God have
you know, just in case.
I've lost thousands of dollars to this man. Oh, dental floss. I get a lot of things stuck in my teeth. I am flossing at my desk pretty much every day, much to the dismay of my coworkers.
Emergency sewing kit.
Chapstick. Chapstick. Your lips get dry. They get a little cracked, but not if you got chapstick.
I always carry a hanky with me in case I see a stranger in the street crying.
I do a lot of climbing at the climbing gym. So this is a rubber kind of squishy ball, and I use this to warm up my fingers in the morning before I start climbing on things. It's really good to avoid injury and to look after your tendons and muscles, and warming up is important for that.
Here in this little pocket, shades, 2.
Because of the rock climbing thing, I do keep a thing of expensive lotion from the Aesop next door to our Berkeley store so that I can moisturize my hands.
Oh! It's my grills case.
Oh, don't touch those. Apple AirPods for when I don't want to hear anyone else talk to me.
Fancy Zippo. Yeah, whenever I'm feeling fancy.
My last object, and it is just my house and car keys, which I do need to get into my house and car, and also this warehouse. If you take these from me, then you could also get into my house and car and this warehouse. So don't do that. I need these.
Matches, in case my lighter fails. Another fancy lighter in case my matches get wet.
If this guy can't start a fire, we're in trouble.
Oh, right here.
Is this a surprise? Did you not even know this was in there?
Secret.
Didn't even know. Emergency scent. Just to freshen up. Don't know how that got in there. Oh. Polaroid camera. Oh, earplugs.
I should have put more stuff in my pockets. He's smoking me here.
What?
Oh, it's a pencil. Yeah. Thank you, Sonny. What else do I have in here? Could it be? What is this?
Poison? Pen?
Oh, lead for my
Lead
pencil.
For the pencil. And maybe even, and another pencil.
Okay.
Oh, portable charger. Oh. Oh, there's
Ellie,
one
you're
here.
like a guy watching a magician do a trick.
I'm so excited.
I'll blur that out.
Emergency cigarettes from Japan. Lucky Strikes. Thank you, Mari.
You can tell who's more loved, who has more gifts in their pocket.
Not even.
There's something else was gonna fall out of there.
That's it.
Pinata stuff.
Okay.
Okay, we did it. So that's what we keep in our pockets as civilians working in a clothing store. Hopefully you keep at least this much, if not more, in yours. Otherwise, you're not really utilizing the full potential of these garments. And we want you loaded up. You never know what's gonna happen during the day, and you have to be prepared. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. We've noticed that 80% of the people who watch these have not subscribed yet. So if you want to support us, if you want to see more, click the button. It's free. Thanks for watching.
Back to Charles. Throw to Charles.
Oh, yeah. Back to you, Charles.
You ever get like an original garment of some kind? Very clearly, this guy was like shot in the back, and there's like holes and blood, like just like
No. Because you have to think about it like this. It's like, what would happen to you today? Like, you'd go to the hospital, they would cut that off your body, and it would go to medical waste and be incinerated. I don't know, I'm very suspect anytime someone's like, oh, like blood stain. I'm like, no, it's not. Basically, anything you're getting now, 99.9% never saw combat. Now we're gonna kind of look at a more universal breakdown of some pocket junk, including like kind of now we're gonna bring in some rations, kind of other stuff like that, right? So again, none of this is like prescriptive, but I think it gives you kind of a good idea of the kinds of stuff that guys would be carrying in their pockets, right? Let's start with airmail, right? So kind of as I mentioned before, airmail was a very popular way of sending letters for GIs. You know, 6 cents to send a letter via airmail, and it got, you know, back to the States at a much faster rate than sending kind of your normal snail mail, which would have been sent via boat. Airmail stamps, kind of your classic airmail envelope here that we kind of still use today. And then also there was V-mail. V-mail was a kind of an innovative way of sending letters that was developed during the war. You got these sheets, these forms. Basically, as it was collected, it would then be photographed, put on microfilm, sent, you know, on basically on a film roll, get to the United States. They would then print each letter, you know, out on photo paper. It's a photograph, and then put into an envelope and send on. You're not actually getting this, right? You're getting like a smaller photograph of the letter, essentially. So there are these documents that were made during the war, basically called IDPF, so that's individual deceased personnel files, right? So if a soldier was killed in action, they would go through their pockets, pull out items that were not issue. You know, they're not pulling out the cigarettes, they're not pulling out the D rations, they're pulling out like kind of their personal effects, right? And they're making an accounting of it, and then they're gonna be sending that on to the next of kin. Those files are now available kind of, you know, through the National Archives. It's an interesting way of doing the kind of work that we're talking about right now, which is figuring out what soldiers carried in their pockets. The number one thing that almost, you know, any deceased soldier had in his pockets was letters from home, followed closely by snapshots. You know, just having photos from home was kind of a pretty big part of, you know, kind of the morale and well-being of the soldier. Then we also now have like a few like ration items as well. Here is a fruit bar from the breakfast K ration. Here's a sleeve of instant coffee, and then a kind of a small package of crackers. So these would be kind of in the small accessory pack that came with a box of K rations. So kind of as we showed you before, kind of this pack of cigarettes. You also have, you know, as I mentioned, cigarettes came in every meal of the K ration, so kind of some leftover cigarettes here. A book of matches that also came with the K rations. This is a German Army spork, and your toilet paper. Right, so this is like a kind of a small roll of toilet paper. Got one of these a day, and that's what you got. Standard handkerchief. We've added a comb here as well, and then candles. You know, during World War II, flashlights were, I'm not gonna say they were in their infancy, but they were not kind of as common as they are today, or would be in the 1950s and 1960s. What I've added here is a D ration. So the D ration was kind of the the RX Cliff Bar of the 1940s. So basically it's a chocolate bar that was made by Hershey's and very nutrient dense product. Didn't taste very good. And that was kind of the point. The point wasn't to kind of make a chocolate bar that a GI would want to kind of, munch down on. It was to kind of be your meal of last resort. We've also added 2 lighters. So on one side, we kind of have your classic kind of, Zippo style. This isn't a Zippo. And then we also have a Dunhill service lighter. And then lastly, a classic German pocket knife. Again, this was something that was taken quite often by GIs and referenced, often kind of taken as souvenirs and also for use by GIs. I mean, honestly, I think we're kind of done. So I think we kind of did a lot. I didn't kind of get to some reading material. Maybe I'll just do that really quickly. I think we're going to do another video at some point about GI books, but during the war, again, entertainment, very limited. GIs were ferocious readers, probably one of the most well-read armies in history, and they were fueled by these pocketbooks. So again, kind of your standard mass market paperback, made to slightly smaller. These were, incredibly, incredibly popular. I think we can kind of start to wrap it up there. I was thinking I could just put this on. I mean, I hope that this kind of gives you a little bit of a understanding of like kind of what these pockets were designed to hold and kind of why pocket space was so important to the average GI. You'll see in a minute kind of just like how filled out these pockets can get. This is only some stuff, right? Like we're not talking about really like full rations here. We're not talking about hand grenades, spare ammunition. Again, all of these things would end up in pockets, right? I mean, I guess something that I could mention here too is like, again, like, well, why pockets, right? Why not the pack? The American Army pack system during the war was mostly the 1928 haversack, which kind of left a lot to be desired. So I filled up all the pockets, kind of with the stuff that we were, kind of the GI pocket junk. I'm just gonna throw it on now, and then we'll say goodbye. But here you go. I mean, like I've added like what, like probably like a good 5 pounds, maybe a little bit more with all this junk in here. At least, yeah. And so, yeah, you can kind of see like kind of how this jacket kind of starts to fill out, right? Again, it kind of gives you like a different appreciation for kind of the real McCoy styles that have, these giant billowing pockets. And, it's not just for your sunglasses and, your giant iPhone 14 Pro Max or whatever, the big one. That's it for today. We're going to do another video probably soon, and hopefully it will be kind of another fun one like this. But thanks for watching, and see you soon.